Welcome back to the channel. It is June, which means it's halfway between Christmas and Christmas, which means it's my birthday. Yay! And this year is quite special because I have this. This is a very nice mechanical keyboard, but it doesn't have a PS2 connector on it. So what is this for? Well, it's for this. So basically this is a Dell System 200, as it says. And this is one of the earliest 286 systems that was available in the UK. And I think it was the first one that was available from Dell. I'm very excited to get this. It's an absolute classic AT clone. It's a monster of a size desktop case, metal. It's got a big red switch on the side, although in this case it's black. But in here is a lovely 80286. I think it's running at 12 megahertz. This one's got the standard 1.2 megabyte floppy, but it's also been upgraded with another floppy. It could be 720, I'm guessing, might be 144. There's a vent down here which suggests there might be a hard disk in here as well. There's a function key template down on the left hand side here for DBase 4, so that's probably what this machine was. It was probably either used for DBase 4 development or for running a DBase 4 application. DBase, by the way, is a database, as you may have guessed, and DBase 4 was the fourth iteration of the Ashton Tate DBase that essentially ruined the company in many ways. DBase 4 was not as good as DBase 3 Plus in some ways. It was way more buggy. It had more features, but it was much harder on the hardware, and it also, as I said, was much more buggy. So it wasn't very popular with business, and people started looking at other things, for example, like Foxbase. Anyway, back to this machine. So it's in reasonable condition. There's a little bit of rust up here on the top, and the plastics are obviously slightly different colours here on the front. But overall, it's actually in pretty good condition. There aren't any dinks or danks in the case. Although around the back, interestingly, someone has hacked a hole in it, and I'm not sure why that is. It's right next to a label that says keyboard. So whether they have changed the motherboard in here or something, I'm not quite sure. So it'll be interesting to turn this on and find out exactly what's in it. I'm hoping it's the original internals. I don't want anything more up to date than a 286. That's why I bought this system. So I first found out about this computer from Personal Computer World, the most prolific computer magazine at the time in the UK. This is from the March 1988 edition. I had this, the original. This is obviously a PDF version, but on their front cover they have this exact machine, and in fact the machine on the cover does actually have the 1.2 and the 720k floppy disk drive, and it comes with a Taxan monitor. I don't have one of those, but I've got a Dell that is probably going to be kind of almost age appropriate for this. The interesting thing about this machine, as the title says down here, this actually looks like it was aimed mostly for OS2, as a lot of 286s were at that time. So let's find the article. So here we go. One of the first companies to revamp its product range with OS2 in mind, Dell has produced a reliable substitute for the real thing, but competitive price does not make for an earth-shattering performance, as Peter Jackson found out. So basically what they're referring to there is the PS2 range of computers from IBM were designed to run OS2, and in fact it was a promise they made to their buyers that, that any PS2 system with a 286 or above will be able to run OS2. That was one of the problems with OS2, in that it was hampered by needing to support 286s from the very beginning. So that's another video, but basically this is Dell's clone, if you like, of a PS2 machine that was designed to run OS2, although it doesn't use anything like microchannel. It's using standard ISA format. So yeah, so here's the article saying, now with System 200, Dell has refined its plans for the era of the PS2, OS2, 3.5-inch discs and VGA graphics. Indeed, the new system is one of the early signs of the expected flood of hybrid PCs, machines that have the same disk drives and graphic displays as PS2 and which can run OS2, but which use the old PC and AT expansion buses rather than the PS2's microchannel architecture. It looks like it's a Dell designed motherboard, and they say it's the interesting combination of budget pricing, features tailored for the new PS2 world, and high performance. From the outside, the System 200 looks exactly like the older 2868 and 28612 AT clones from Dell in the characteristic Dell casing, and these are, you know, like standard huge AT cases. So the casing is bigger than an XT, but a fraction short of the full AT height. So the only slightly unconventional feature is that the EGA monitor is powered from the outlet on the back of the machine rather than from a separate mains lead. So this might have an EGA card in it, in which case we're going to have to dig out a different monitor than the one I was expecting. I thought it had a VGA output, but we'll have a look. They've got a comment here about it being a bit noisy. They're very happy with the built-in power supply, 230 watts, much bigger than kind of equivalents around the time. So at the rear are 6 expansion slots, 2 8-bit and 4 16-bit. And it's got a 12.5 megahertz 286 processor. Chips and Technologies custom chipset. The RAM complement is soldered to the board and comprises of 20 256 kilobit chips and 4 64 kilobit chips with a total capacity of 672K. Okay, so it's got just over 640K on the motherboard. Interesting. So it does have one wait state because of the 120 nanosecond chips. Some other machines use 100 nanosecond chips, which means there was no wait state. And that made a big difference actually at the time. So in fact, they're saying this 10 megahertz 286 from AST runs at the same speed as this 12.5 megahertz AT. So performance-wise, perhaps not the fastest AT in the world because of that slightly slower memory. There are memory sockets for adding more memory for SIM sockets, and they're talking about the extra memory being used for OS2 or for Xenix. And they were making the comment to run OS2, you would definitely have to upgrade the memory. It won't fit in less than 1.5 megabytes. Got the usual serial ports, etc., etc. The battery that stores the setup information in CMOS RAM is actually fitted on the circuit board, oh dear, rather than fixed in a separate holder with a cable connected to the board, although these are connected. Okay, so it looks like there may be a problem because typically systems with batteries of this age have leaked and damaged the motherboard. Oh dear. The base machine does come with either a 1.44 megabyte or a 1.2 megabyte drive, so this has got both, and it is a 1.44 megabyte, not a 720K, which is nice. And then they have hard drives, ESDI in some cases by the looks of it. Dell is going to provide a VGA board, so I'm hoping this has got a VGA in it. I'm just going to check the serial number, just in case it's the one in the review. It is not, it is a much later, it's a 04, not a 01. So it comes with DOS 3.3, doesn't come with OS2 by default. And they're talking about the differences between the IBM OS2 and Microsoft OS2, because Microsoft, obviously, IBM only sold theirs with their own hardware, whereas Microsoft was going to other manufacturers such as Dell. So there are some differences between the two. Here's some benchmarks. Because you aren't familiar with this magazine, you won't know what those benchmarks mean. They're a set of benchmarks they wrote in BASIC, I think, that runs on every machine they go through. So this number has got no context if you're not familiar with this magazine. So they're just talking about software compatibility. This machine they had for review had an EGA card, and it worked with everything they threw at it, so that's all good. So prices. The prices start at £1,299 for a monochrome system with either a single drive of either type, a 20 megabyte hard drive, and it goes all the way up to £3,199 for a VGA, multi-scan monitor, one floppy drive, and 150 megabyte hard drive. I'll put on screen what that would be now in 2025 money. The machine that was on review was £2,334 in 1988. So as a fast AT clone, the System 200 is by no means earth-shattering in terms of performance, but they do like the price, so that's good. They say it allows OS2 to be run if needed, and they were very happy with the hard disk performance. And they keep referring to it as a hybrid machine, so basically the cross between MS-DOS and OS2, because OS2 historically, for the year before that, had been limited to microchannel architecture machines only. The Amstrad PC 1640. Ooh, I do love those. That's why I have two. An article on artificial intelligence, all the way back from 1988. So artificial intelligence isn't something new. It's been, from the dawn of computing, people have been talking about artificial intelligence. It's meant something slightly different through the ages. But there you go. Oh, Scientific Plus. Oh, brilliant. What a great bit of software that is. You know, if we get this machine working, we'll put Scientific Plus on there just to show you what it is. It's great. All good stuff. Right, let's get back to the machine. So we have the machine and the keyboard. And I think this is the original OEM that came with it. It's not Dell branded, but it looks like the one in the photos from that article. And it's a clicky mechanical keyboard. Seems in good condition. It's got the right connector, etc. So I think this probably is the correct keyboard for this machine. So now we need a monitor. I haven't got one that's exactly age appropriate, but I have got one very, very close. At this point in time, people would be using serial mice. So I've got a Microsoft serial mouse to put on here. Okay, before we turn it on, let's actually just have a bit of a closer look inside, just to make sure everything's okay. The photos that were on the eBay listing did show it switched on, so I'm hoping it's actually all okay. So to take it apart, there are some screws around the back. There's a screw missing there, but I'm guessing it's the 4 at the edge in the corners. Okay, well that's interesting because that is a wood screw. No, it's definitely not a computer screw. This one looks the same. Yeah, that's not supposed to be in there. Just notice on this label here it says key number 369, so the keyboard lock key was number 369. I wonder how many variations there were. The other thing that's interesting is that the video panel here is filled in where the video card originally would have been, and it's now over here, so that's obviously had a change of video card at some point, and there's a missing blanking plate here, so something's been taken out, I think. Probably a sound card, I'm guessing. Let's try taking these screws out. These do look more like normal PC screws. They are. These two and this one look like they hold power supply in, and that one's loose. This one I don't know what that's for. One there I think was supposed to be for the case, but no longer is. So in theory the case should just slide apart now. And it is. Let's do it from this angle so you can see what's happening. So basically the front of the case is coming off and the chassis remains behind. It looks like it's got to come all the way. Something is stopping it from coming. Oh, there you go. These cases are big. You need a lot of desk space to service one of these. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's just bring this in a little bit. So we have some dust, some cutouts on the front, some cables here. Where do they go? They go down there. Was there supposed to be a speaker in here? I think that might be where the speaker's supposed to be. That's currently missing. And we've got some a panel with LEDs on it. So that's the hard disk and power LEDs, I think. Then we've got some drive bays over here for the floppy disks. And then there's a missing compartment here, which was presumably where the hard disk is. And then we've got some unusual cables that look like earth cables, but are all crimped together. Yeah, I think they are earth cables. Interesting. Looking at the side, it's very straightforward, nothing surprising. It's a very large power supply with the built-in physical switch. And then on the other end, you can see the motherboard. Oh, and I think we've looked out. I'll show you something in a minute. So originally the video card would have been in this slot here, which is an 8-bit slot. The current video card is in this slot here, which is a 16-bit slot. So it looks like at some point the video card has been upgraded and moved. So here's that video card. I can't see any identifying marks on it from this angle. It says made in Thailand, copyright 1991. It has got a model number on it. Let's have a little look, see if we can get a picture of that. 8916CX2/4/8 LC2, or a Vision A. Not familiar with that card. I'm not really familiar with many 16-bit ISA cards, to be honest. Could well be a Singlabs or a Video 7 card or something. We'll take it out in a moment and have a look. And then next to that looks like it's the multi-IO card, because we've got a ribbon cable here going to the floppy drives, and then another ribbon cable here which goes to, or would have gone to the hard drive. It's got 2 connectors on it, and it looks like it's a 40 pin, so I'm guessing that's an IDE style cable. Even though this is an AT machine, it looks like it's an IDE style cable. The thing I wanted to show you where we looked out is here. This has got a Rayovac off-board battery that's connected to a header, and that means we haven't got the onboard battery, which is leaking everywhere, which is great. The space for the onboard battery should have been there by the looks of it. We've got what looks like standard ATX power supply. Let's get these ISA cards out and see exactly what they are, especially the video card. I'm quite interested in that. See if it has had an upgrade. So this is in the days before Visa Local Bus, so these 16-bit ISA card slots, I've taken out the wrong one. So these 16-bit ISA slots would have been the fastest way of connecting a video card. These look like the original screws. So what do we have? We have a Trident TVGA 8900C. It's got a quad-cell BIOS. Looks in good condition. Not sure if it's going to be original. This machine originally came out in 1988, and this is a card from 1991. As I said, I think it probably is an upgrade. It's got a full complement of the RAM sockets are full. So I'm not sure how much memory this has got, but all the sockets are full. Okay, that's interesting. Let's have a look at the other card. So floppy drive and presumably IDE connectors are coming out. There's also another cable attached here. Red is at the top. It's not keyed. Where does that go? That goes to the front. So that must go to the hard disk LED. It's stuck in there pretty stiff. There we go. So this is a Dell branded card down here at the bottom. PWA 60548 revision B00 from 1990 maybe. Looks like it's got a Western Digital chip in there. The board copyright is 1989. So this is a Dell multifunction card made by Xitronics, potentially. Not familiar with one of those. All the other machines I've got have their I/O on board. So this is the first one I have where it's on a separate card. Talking of I/O on board, so here we've got that weird keyboard connector. It's weird because it's probably supposed to be here, but it is on the inside. It looks like it's in the right place. Not sure why we've got this, what happened there. But here we've got headers that come to back panel for 2 serial ports and a parallel printer port. It was common to have 2 serial ports because one of them would be used for a mouse and the other one was used for your serial peripheral like a modem. The motherboard itself is green and it's in the right hand or left hand side of the case from the front. It's got a chips and technology chipset. And here's the CPU, here's the BIOS, 4 ISA slots, which are 16-bit, and 2 which are 8-bit. It's got some onboard RAM as per that article, but it's also got a complement of SIM slots which are filled. All 4 are filled, so that could be 4 megabytes of RAM. That would be amazing if it was. It could just be 1 megabyte depending on how dense those chips are. The board itself looks in good condition. It doesn't look too dusty or too dirty. There are quite a lot of tantalums, but all of them seem to be intact. None have gone pop yet. I think we should turn this on and see what happens. Okay, we're sort of partly reassembled. The video card and I/O card are back in. Attached the keyboard. I plugged in an LCD monitor for now, just for convenience. Let's turn it on and see what happens. One thing I forgot to mention is it's quite a chunky power supply. It's very large physically, and in their article they did comment about it being reasonably powerful. So let's turn it on and see what happens. Aha! We have a signal. Okay, so we've got 640k of base memory and a megabyte of extended memory. It's just beeped, so there must be a beeper in there somewhere. Although this speaker hole appears to be empty, it's obviously not a speaker hole. Ah, that's for the lock, the key lock, isn't it? That's a little micro switch just there. That's what that is. So there's a speaker in there somewhere we've not found, but it's come on. That's great. Dell System 200, invalid configuration. So the battery we know now is flat. F2 to run the setup. So Dell's, until very recently, still use the same keys to get into the BIOS, which is nice. Let me see if I can get a screen capture of all this. So okay, we've got screen capture working, so hopefully you'll be able to see all this. Clock chip lost power, CMOS checks I'm invalid. Fine. Hit any key to continue. And here we are, Phoenix Technologies Limited setup version 4.01 for the Dell System 200. This is great. A working 286, that's really, really nice. It thinks it's January 1988. That makes sense, given the time period when this came out. It's detected a 5 and a 12-inch 1.2 megabyte floppy drive A. It hasn't detected a floppy drive B, And now I'm looking, I can see that the drive B isn't connected. At least this floppy cable has an empty connector on it, so that's not going to work straight away. Hard disk not installed, base memory and extended memory, yeah. Display CGA 80, so it's 80 column CGA mode. Let's see if we can change that and see what. So it is giving us a VGA option. So this is a VGA card. In fact, let's have a look at what that Trident TV GA 8900C is. So it's a 16-bit ISA card. We knew that from where it was plugged in. It can take either half or 1 megabyte of memory. It is from 1991. It would have been $295 when it first came out. And PC Magazine in America has a multi-card review comparing lots of different VGA, Super VGA cards from around that time. Let's see if I can find the one that we want. Okay, this is a massively long article. Lots of detail. So this was sold retail as the Trident Impact 3, and it looks like it's pretty mid-range in most ways. And they say it's an okay choice for a VESA-compatible Super VGA display. This article didn't look at DOS performance by the looks of it. So the Impact 3 didn't come out till 1991, so that is some time after this machine was made. Okay, so what we need to do really is try and get a new power supply for the bar so we don't lose these settings every time. Work out how to connect that 3.5-inch drive. Let's go back to looking at the BIOS. So the CPU can run at 3 different speeds. We can run 12.5, which is the default, half of that, or somewhere between 8 megahertz. And the co-processor, you can switch between 8 or 12 megahertz models depending on what you've got installed. We haven't got one installed, obviously. No boot device. Okay, we have made some progress. Let's get a hard drive in here. Let's see if we can connect that other floppy drive, because we've got some operating system disks we can use. Things are going well. Okay, we're into a little bit of a problem. So this is the CMOS battery for this computer, and these generally don't leak anywhere near as the batteries that are soldered to the board, but this one has, it turns out, leaked. So it's wicked down the cable here and into the connector, and the connector's rusted, the cable has broken off, and the plastic's broken as well, but also the connector on the board has corroded. I can't see, with the board in place, I can't see how far that corrosion has spread. But we're going to have to deal with that. Normally what I do is just quickly solder on a new battery holder to the existing connector, but that's not going to work in this case. So 2 problems. One is cleaning the board. The second one is replacing this. I'm still going to replace it with a battery holder. I haven't got the connector now, so I'm going to have to think of another way of doing this. I haven't got another 4-pin connector that's the same, so what I'm going to do instead is sacrifice some DuPont leads. And these have got the same sort of connectors on the end, and they're individual, but it'll still work, and then I just solder that onto the battery compartment as usual. So that's how I'm going to resolve that issue. But we do need to disassemble the whole computer now to get to the board, so we can neutralize that, that battery corrosion. So there we have a new battery pack ready to go. Let's deal with the motherboard next. Right, the motherboard is in this half of the case, and the problem area is kind of down here at the front. So don't think I can do this in situ. I think I do need to take the motherboard out. Part of the motherboard is covered by this drive cage, which is welded in place. This is not screwed in place. So I'm hoping there's no screws down in that bottom corner of the motherboard, otherwise this motherboard is not going to come out. Let's give it a go. Let's take out the cards, etc. See what we can do. It's very hard to get this card out. It's making the board flex rather a bit more than I'd like to. So that's everything off the board. Let's take out the screws. Interestingly, there's no screws in these 2 holes. So has this motherboard been out before? There's no screw there either. Ooh, I wonder if someone's had this motherboard out previously. And the screws are small Phillips, then definitely not positive drive. A normal positive drive won't fit in these. So Dell part number 6054, revision A13 for the motherboard. Okay, well that's all the screws I can access. If there are any more screws,
were screwed, as it were. So let's see if we can get this out. Oh, looks like we're in luck. So interestingly, there is a screw in this corner, but it's onto a standoff leg rather than something that's screwed to the base of the machine. So that gives that corner of the board some support. So here's a bit of a closer look up at the board. So you've got the 4 16-bit ISA slots, 2 8-bits, connectors for various bits and pieces, and as I said, the model is 60540 revision A13, vendor number 3. So this board is probably made by more than one person for Dell. Chips and Technologies chipset, Intel CPU, 287 socket, but the RAM is fully populated. There's plastic clips on those. I'm not going to take them out unless we need to. But the problem area is just over here. So let's zoom in on that. So problem area is here. You can see there's a label on the motherboard that says battery, and there's 3 connectors, one of which has still got part of the original connector on it. And that isn't shifting. And you can see the corrosion around it. Luckily, I think it's just contained to the connector itself. I don't think the trace looks damaged. Maybe it does a little bit, actually. Yeah, from here to here, it's a little bit damaged. I don't know if it's going to take a current at all, which means we may never be able to get a CMOS battery connected to here. We've got some other options. We could put a bodge wire between that connector and further down the trace. I've never ever done a bodge wire, so I'm not going to do it on this motherboard. I think this motherboard's too precious. One thing we could do is the motherboard does have a space here for a dedicated battery. I'm sure we could solder a new battery connector onto there potentially. Let's go ahead, plan A. Let's try and clean this up so that we can use that new battery compartment we've just made. So we're going to use a diluted solution of vinegar. Just paint that on minimally where we need it, so we can get off some of that green sludge. It might also help us to get rid of that terminal. The connector's looking much better, and the board around it looks clean. No, that's corroded on there, pretty tight. Let's keep going with the vinegar on that connector. Phew, it's come off. Let's come off in one piece. And left the connector behind. So yeah, I think we got to that just in time. I think the rest of the board in that area is fine. Okay, let's dry that off as much as we can. And let's rinse it off now properly. So you don't want any residue of the vinegar to stay behind, because ultimately over time that could cause corrosion as well. And then finally IPA. The backside of the board, by the way, looks completely fine. This is the power connector here, and it seems to be all right. Just give the rest of the board a little bit of a brush up while we're at it. Now it's out of the system. So interestingly, down in this bottom corner here, there's a handwritten code, which is MM23. So I'm guessing somebody had this board out in 2023 to look at something. I'm not sure what it was or who that is, but yeah, it looks like someone's been in here. Okay, it didn't particularly look dirty before, but it does definitely look a little bit nicer for having had a brush. So how have we got a bad trace over here? Well, we can find out because we've got this other battery connector over here. So the ground over here should be should have continuity with this ground over here. Let's see if that's correct. Yep. So we're okay for ground. How about for actual positive? Phew. Continuity. Okay, so we got lucky. We managed to save that connector before it became damaged and before it damaged that trace. Okay, let's get this beautiful board back in its case. Okay, there's a little bit of dust in the bottom of the case, so I'm just going to use a keyboard hoover to see if I can get that out. Not bad. So I looked through my parts bin, I thought I had some that looked identical, but these seem to be a slightly unusual thread. They're not the two standard threads that are used in PCs these days. So I suspect if this was taken apart in 2023, these screws were taken out and put on a load of other screws just because they look like normal screws, but when the time came to put them back in, the 5 are missing. It's quite a high number. Oh well. So looking at the connectors on the cars, they look a little bit tarnished, so I'm just going to clean those up before we reassemble and put some deoxit in the slots as well. So let's get this battery holder up and running. So it takes 3 AAA batteries, which gives 4.5 volts, which is the same as the voltage of the unit that came out. I managed to rescue the Velcro off the back of the other battery and stick it on here so we can position it in the same place. Let's just tape all this round though, just so that nothing falls out unexpectedly. Here we go, so that should last us a few years. Bit of a tight fit, but has gone on. There we go. Put the speaker back on as well. It was just in the way. Okay, so I think that's where we're going to call it for part 1 of this video. We managed to get quite a lot done. We've had a look at the system. We managed to have a look at a contemporaneous review of the system, which was really nice. Shame I haven't got that actual magazine, but the PDF version was very interesting to look at. We managed to deal with that leaking CMOS battery and replace it and clean up the board a little bit, and also get the board in and out, missing a few screws, but hopefully the system is now reassembled. So in the next part we're going to be looking at storage, hard drive and floppy disks, and seeing how we can deal with those. Thanks for watching. If you like, press the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you press the notification bell you get a notification when the next video gets released. See you in the next one.